to the Pelican Brief with your host, David Tatman.
Hello and welcome to the Pelican Brief. I'm your host, David Tatman. We have a very special guest on our show this afternoon, State Treasurer John Schroder and gubernatorial candidate. John has been very involved in state government for a long time and has done some great work, managing nearly $65 billion in state assets. And most importantly, and what I'm really impressed by, is the $279 million that John returned to the rightful property owners, the citizens of Louisiana, for unclaimed property. So I want to welcome John to the show. Welcome, John.
Hey, Dave. Sorry it took us so long to get here, but I'm glad here. It's been nice to know you the last 15 years working with you and your team. So looking forward to getting past the next 35 days.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. And I know you had a big debate last night, and I know you're running and gunning, so I appreciate you giving us the time to be here. So for those people in our audience who may not know you that well, I'd like you to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about you.
Yeah, happy to do that, man. Look, I'm originally from New Orleans. You can tell by this little country accent I have. 62, been married 38 years, 4 grandkids. Played football at college at Southeast. I was born in, as I said, in New Orleans, but went to East Jefferson. I know you're a John Curtis boy, and played football and baseball there. Went on to Southeast and played football. Met Ellie, got a degree in criminal justice. We've been on the North Shore now for about 41 years. Ellie's from White Castle. So we had to decide where we were going to live when I left the military, and we settled on the North Shore because that's where we met at Southeast and in Tangible Parish. So, we've had a fantastic life, and I tell people, I've spent 10 years in my first professional career in the military and law enforcement. I had a retina hemorrhaged when I was in my late 20s, and basically changed the course of my whole life. And I make no bones about it. God had a different plan for me. If you don't believe it, it happened to me. And I say everything happens for a reason. I went from putting drug dealers in jail to managing a $60+ billion operation. So I've done a lot of things in between, Dave. And I tell people, for the first time, somebody who represents the 85 percentile, meaning comes from the working class, that people, the great overwhelming majority of people who go to work every day and pay their bills and follow the rules and do all the things you're supposed to do and just live month to month, year to year, don't really get involved in politics. That's me.
It's always been you. I mean, I worked with you for, 9 years? You served in the state legislature. And then, when you ran for treasurer, you I think, positioned yourself well for that because you know the state finances so well.
Yeah, if experience is what's important in this governor's race, 10 years in law enforcement. I'm a former military. In the military, I worked in the infantry, military intelligence, and finished my career as a special agent in the CID, working in narcotics investigations. When my retina hemorrhaged, I came back to Louisiana with Ellie. We raised our family on the North Shore. I basically have been in business for almost 33 years. Everything from construction, which was our basic, what was it? The basic. It was the sort of the core of what we did as entrepreneurs, building homes, real estate, everything real estate. I own a real estate company. I have a development company. And I've done all that over the last 30-something years. But we've also been in small retail, grocery, tanning salon, hair salon, laundromat, security. There's not too many small businesses that I haven't had my finger in. Restaurants, and I say it's singular because I've had one, and many of those businesses still open today. I help small business owners get in business and stay in business. I enjoy it. I love helping people. And then I got involved in politics at 47 years old, 48 years old, served 9.5 years, most of that time on the budget committee. in some of the worst fiscal times that we saw, serving under Bobby Jindal, which I still think we suffer from today. Very, very, very poor fiscal decisions made under the Jindal administration. Not a shot at him. I disagreed big time, if you remember, on the decisions we were making from a fiscal standpoint, because government was doing things that we didn't do in our private world, and that's the biggest problem I see in government. And then I decided to run for state treasurer when John Kennedy moved on, because I had worked myself into a position of being an expert on the budget. Right. And I think for most legislators would say, if you want to talk to somebody who knows something about the budget, go see that Schroder guy. Right. That's all a dude does. Sure. So I wanted to be treasurer to be able to take it to the next level. And David, honestly, I sit here today. First of all, I never thought I'd even be in politics, much less be the state treasurer of Louisiana. My degrees in criminal justice, my PhDs from the School of Hard Knocks, and I'm managing $60 billion today. Yeah. So it wasn't until probably 3 years in it or so, maybe a little longer, where some people sat down with me when the Attorney General said he was running 4 years ago almost. Sat down with me and said, man, you need to really think about doing this. And I just tell people, I bring something totally different to the table than you typically get in a governor's race. We don't have the most money, but I think we've raised enough to get our message out. And we'll see what happens. I got to catch a little lightning in a bottle. Some things have to fall into place. But I'm going to offer myself in a humble way. People like me don't typically get in these kind of positions, and it might be an outside shot, but I got a shot, or I wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Well, if you look at the past governor's races, I mean, a lot turns toward the end of the race. So you talked a little bit about people talking to you about running for governor. Why did John Schroder decide to run for governor?
David, you know me well, man. We've had a good relationship. It's been honest. When you ask me a question, I give you an answer.
Even if I don't like it.
Even if you don't like it. And that's the core of what I am. I came here as a public servant, not to be served, but to serve the people of this state. And the unique thing about being a legislator, you and I didn't know each other, even though we sort of grew up in the same area, but we did not know each other. But the unique thing about, and why I ran for the state legislature, what was intriguing about it was, your decisions affect everybody in the state of Louisiana, not just the school board where you represent, or the council that you may represent, or the parish presidents, or the parish councilman. No, a state legislator, every decision you make, you may be from St. Tammany, but it affects Webster Parish and Calcasieu Parish and everywhere in between, right? So it's sort of a unique thing about it. But I tell people, we throw this around a lot. I want somebody who's honest. I didn't say I know it all. I just want to be honest.
Right.
Tell me the truth. Don't tell me one thing and do something else.
Right.
And I'll tell you, the thing that bothers me the most is the cronyism and the corruption that wraps this building. And I know we're not sitting at the Capitol, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
It infects the process. It infects the political process. I watched it under the Jindal administration. I've watched it in the Edwards administration. And look, it is what it is, and I'm willing to talk about it. And I'm going to be a governor that ends it. I will not use your tax dollars to push public policy that's not good for this state of Louisiana, or bad for good or bad. Mm-hmm. It's the process is politically corrupt, and I will end that. Mm-hmm. And if the people of Louisiana want ultimately somebody to go to Baton Rouge and just do whatever is right and not let politics get in the way into your decision making, then I'm that guy. And guess what? I've already proved it can work. Yeah. I run a $60 billion operation. You can imagine the friends that I have and the questions and the things I get asked to do, David, that I don't think people the people probably know what's going on and think it's going on, but they really don't know. And I'm here to tell you, it is going on. Yeah. And I have looked it in the eyes, and I say no. And I joke a lot about this, that somebody just has to be the parent in the room. And there's a word that's not used a lot in that building. It's called no. So I believe the state needs a CEO. Somebody goes to work every day, 5 Mondays a week, just to help solve these problems. Doing it in an honest way. I can accept the decision making. I want it to be a pure decision. I don't want it to be the benefit of somebody. And I'm tired of the 85 percentile that go to work every day like you and I, getting crapped on by the 15% who are getting the benefits of everything. That's wrong. It's not morally right. It's not ethically right. And I will change that culture.
Yeah, and I know you have always operated that way. There's a song going on around right now, Richmond, north of Richmond, and it really does describe that 85% that you're talking about. So let's pretend it's the election was yesterday, and you're elected governor. What do you do? What is John Schroder's administration going to look like, and what are you going to do?
Look, I think the first thing we have to do is build some faith and trust back in the process. You know, one of my biggest experiences being state treasurer now, I'll be 6 years in November, is, David, all the boards I have to sit on. Statutorily, I sit on 35 boards. I've learned as much about state government, even sitting in all those appropriations meetings that I did and all the meetings I had and building relationships with my colleagues and all. Man, sitting on all these boards from retirement, the Housing Corporation, State Bond Commission, you know, taking over, unfortunately, towns that are going bankrupt and sitting on that board and overseeing that, you know, I've learned a lot. But one of the first things we have to do is address this insurance problem. I will have a summit. I will bring all the players to the table. Insurance industry, construction, legal. And I'm calling it a summit because everybody's saying we're going to have a special session. Well, you have to know what you're going to do in that special session. Right. Once you go to the special session, you have to have a plan. So first I'm going to develop that plan. I hope I can do that in 30 to 45 days, and then I'll call a special session right after that. I might also have to call a special session on the budget. Right. I'm not convinced that the budget as prepared is the best for the state. I think was a lot of political decisions being made as legislators were turned out. I think we spent way too much money on non-state priorities. And quite frankly, we're a poor state with 2 million people on Medicaid, 900,000 on Medicare. Almost 60% of our population is already on some type of federal insurance. So I might call a special session to redo the budget for the remainder of the fiscal year. But one of the major things that I want to do is set a tone. I will call within the first 30 days a mandatory meeting for every person that sits on a board in Louisiana. And we're going to set a code of conduct. And if you don't live by that code of conduct, you're going to be off the board. And then as soon as we get into session, I'm going to have some legislation that puts some parameters in what you cannot do as a board member. Because these board members, not all, and we have a lot of people doing good work, but we have a few that infects the whole process. So when I talk about the cronyism and corruption that's infecting government, I'm also talking about all our boards because there's over 9,000 people.
I serve on a board.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you. Our board is great, by the way. Yeah. I serve on the Louisiana Educational Television Authority, and it's a great board, and there's none of that going on, I can assure you. But I would, love to meet with you too and talk about those things because I think they're relevant. Are there any other, you talked about insurance clearly. There was a news report today that it's actually a national problem. Yeah. That it's broader, and of course insurance is worldwide. People think it's just Louisiana, but when you're in an area where the insurance is high, but then you're the highest of that area, then it gets really, really difficult.
No, look, let me expand on that a little. So I met with the commissioner. Now that we know we have one, car insurance is a major problem. So I think you have to separate some of these things. I think car insurance is one issue. Property insurance is another, but it's falling on the back of the 85% of people who just have to get homeowners, and more and more of their paycheck is now going to that. That's who's suffering more than anybody. Not that the 15% isn't suffering too, but they can afford it. Right. Okay, so we have to address that. We have to address car insurance. That's the most egregious of all, I believe. But at the end of the day, if we can't get the billboard lawyers to sit at the table, then we're in trouble. We're not going to fix this on the backs of the insurance industry, or the backs on the construction industry, or the backs of the legal community, because they didn't make the storms come, right? But we have to do something about taking advantage of a situation in a crisis situation. You know, there's laws in place that stop contractors from gouging during storms. I think that needs to go across the board now. I mean, I think everybody ought to make money. I believe in free enterprise. Yep. But I mean, look, I had a lady call me recently, distraught, from the Houma area, that she finally, after 2 years, is getting her payment from the insurance company that went bankrupt. So I'm assuming it's coming through Citizens. Well, the lawyers are getting 33%.
Yeah.
And she's crying.
Yeah.
You know, she's poor, and it's just 33 cents on a dollar now has got to go to the lawyer. It doesn't. Says she would pay them, but they didn't earn it.
Yeah, I will tell you, I first started in government back in the last century, and we had a major issue with workers' comp. And everybody, you know, the governor and others got people together at a table, and we figured it out. And, you know, I work in that industry. Right. Workers' comp is the most solid line of insurance that we have. Rates are not going up, they're going down.
Right.
And so there's a way to do it. We just have to get everybody together.
Look, I believe a lot of these problems, whether it's crime, education, insurance, you pick it, DOTD, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Revenue, which I get a lot of complaints about, but I like their leadership at the Department of Revenue right now. If you're waiting for that person, that expert to show up that knows something about all of that, that person doesn't exist.
Right.
You know, that person that knew everything, he died on a cross about 2,000 years ago.
Right.
So I think you need a CEO, somebody who has the ability to bring the talent in, no matter where it is. I told some insurance people this week, don't fuss at me when I pay too much money to bring talent in. You don't fuss when you have the best football coach or the best basketball coach at LSU. Don't fuss when I bring in the best people to fix our problems in Louisiana, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. When I say I'm an entrepreneur and a CEO, when I say we're going to have to entrepreneur our way out of it, we need to bring thinkers, people who know how to solve real problems, that have solved those problems. But there's a difference between you solving a problem when you have to take the dollar out of your pocket, David, versus somebody solving it on somebody else's dollar.
Right.
I know I solve problems based on the dollar coming out of my pocket. That's how I'm trained. I'm 62 years old. I'm not 42 or 45. I have a lot more wisdom, and you can tell by this hair, than a lot of people in this race, because I've done it. I'm not coming to change anything. I'm telling the people of Louisiana, if you want change, you better go find somebody that knows how to do it.
Right.
I've done it. I have a record that's done it. You have people in this race that are either lifetime policy people, lifetime government people. I'm a lifetime doer, entrepreneur, put thousands of people to work in this state and invested our personal wealth. And I'm not Godzilla. You know me. I'm driving a Hyundai Sonata, a campaign car that I bought off a used car lot.
Right.
You know, I could drive anything I want, but the reason I say that, I'm trying to instill or restore faith and trust in government. And I know people are watching me. I know what they watch what I do, how I walk, how I dress, where I go, what I drive. So I do it in a humble way to show people I'm here to serve. This is how public servants should be.
Yeah, and look, when you're elected governor, you won't have a life for 4 or 8 years, because you can't. I mean, you're on call. It's a 24/7 job if you're going to do it right.
Right. I agree, and that's why I say I enjoy doing this. You know, some people don't like working. I love working.
Right.
You've watched me now for 15 years. There's never been a day that I've come here and not want to be here.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't want to be here, I wouldn't be here.
So yeah, so I agree with you. You work hard. You're the hardest working man in showbiz, and you always were so well prepared in committee. I haven't watched you as much as treasurer because I don't really delve into that. But what you've done returning those dollars in unclaimed property has been amazing because I see it all the time. In fact, my wife always checks me and says, "Have you checked that recently?"
We get new money every year.
Yeah.
But look, let me tell you, you brought it up, so let me just brag a little bit on my department. The program's 50 years old this year. We've returned more claims in the last 6 years since I've been treasurer than we have in the previous 44 years combined, David.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
6 years, we've done more business in 6 years than what they did in the 44 years because there was no incentive. And I saw that right off the bat because the state government was taking whatever money wasn't returned every year. I put an end to that.
I know you did, yes.
You know, it was a common sense thing to do. It was the right thing to do.
Right.
And I could bring that across state government. That's really what gives me the confidence to sit here and tell you I can be the governor of this state because I've run an operation. I've run it from the administrative side, and people don't think about that. This is way bigger than just being elected to a position. You have human resources. You have payroll, hiring, firing. I mean, it's an operation. It is a business.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. Now, this business does have to take care of those that can't take care of themselves.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the backside, we have neglected the infrastructure of this state. And I don't mean roads and bridges, although those are pretty crappy themselves.
Right.
I'm talking about how do we deliver the basic services to the state? And what is government's role? You know, you asked earlier, what am I going to do initially? The things I believe government should do: education, public education, and public safety. And then in this insurance issue and the cronyism and corruption, those four things will get my absolute attention. And God bless me with one thing. I just have tremendous energy. I get a lot of things done in one day.
Yeah.
And it's possible, and we will move this ball. But I want to be very clear. My intention is to be the governor for 4 years, not 8. I'm looking at it just like I did treasurer. I finished up Kennedy's initial term, and then my intention was to come serve 1 4-year term. And that's what I'm doing. I never said that to anybody, but I go to work every day like it's my last day. God does not promise us tomorrow. Right? My faith is important to me. My family's important to me. And I am putting all of that aside to share myself with the citizens of the state to bring some faith and trust back to this process because it's doable. I proved it. You know, when you manage the kind of money I manage, you should have heard all the things that when I took over. But we smoothed all that out. The rules are going to be the rules, and access is equal to all.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I would tell you is I have always said to those who are close to me, not broadly, but I think the person who can change the state of Louisiana is going to be somebody who will run for governor and win and not have to worry about reelection. Go in and do the things that you need to do. It'll probably cause you to not get reelected, even if you would run, because if you really get in there, and again, I'm kind of an insider on all that, if you get in there and do the things you really need to do, people are not going to like it, but somebody's got to break the sort of good old boy.
No question.
Yeah, and so that's good. So let's go to the next phase, which is tell us how you're going to win the election.
Well, look, doing things like this, getting on the air. You know, we're going to spend a lot of money in the next 5 weeks in the advertising, and we'll see. I know the Attorney General has a big lead. The Republican Party came out and endorsed him a year ago, before the election even started, the process started. But we'll see. Look, I decided back in February that I would get in this race for our reasons. When I say our, Ellie and me, and then we'd lay it all out there. I at the very least, I want to force a debate on what the issues are in this state. Everybody knows we have crime problems. There are no new ideas. How long you been in Baton Rouge?
I moved to Baton Rouge in 1990, so I just finished my 35th legislative session.
So I would tell you, and you would agree, there's no new ideas.
No.
This is about leadership.
Yeah.
This is about a leader who's going to command a presence that people will sit in a room, politics aside, and figure out, let's start with the things we agree on and fix those, because we're not going to agree. My wife and I have been married for 38 years. I know you've been married a long time too. That probably has taught me more than anything in my politics, because my wife's a little short Cajun lady, but she packs a punch.
She does.
You know? So you have to learn how to negotiate.
Right.
Right? And sometimes you need to just admit you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and move on.
Well, I'm married too for 34 years, and I would say I'm always wrong.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not.
But you know, here's the thing, man. We get so stuck in our egos in that building. Something happens. I don't know what it is. You know, when I sit and talk to legislators individually, they all make a lot of sense. But when you put them in a pack, and I was part of that pack for 9.5 years, it's something that happens when you get in that building. Something about all that marble, concrete, and it sucks the common sense right out of people's brains during session. But look, this is about me trying to get the public to understand there are people like me who are honest, who go to work every day, very capable of making a decision. The decision isn't what's hard, it's the ramification. And can you handle the ramification of your decision making? Can you handle the onslaught of the pressure? Can you look a professional like David Tatman in the eye and say, David, this is why we have to do this? Because if your decisions are based on fact and data, people understand that.
Right.
And I will show you fact and data why we're going to make the decisions we're going to make.
Right.
And that's what has to happen. And those are going to be some very difficult decisions. And you said that a moment ago. And I'll say this first, and you can tell people I said this. I'm not looking past 4 years, and because I know those decisions will be very difficult. People may not want me to be here 4 years from now, but I'm not. I will tell you this: I will make the proper decisions, and they're not going to be easy because our priorities are screwed up. I mean, because we have to invest more in early childhood education. We have to invest in our law enforcement communities, and we have to fix this insurance problem. It's going to take some investment, but also, if you're going to fix your crime problem, you're going to have to invest in a mental health crisis in this state, or our crime problem's not going to get much better, because our prisons are full of people who are sick mentally.
Right.
I feel, look, as an Army veteran, man, it bothers me big time to see all these homeless people, because I know, and not just because they're veterans, but the veterans have some other options. And this ought to tell you how sick they are mentally, because they're on the streets, because a lot of them mentally want to be there. But David, they have some ability through the VA to get some help, but we can't get them there. So we're going to have to make that a priority, invest in it if we're going to move the needle. But I want to be very clear. All of these problems are going to be difficult to fix. All of these problems are going to take a generation to fix. We need 30 years of commitments on some of these problems, like early childhood education, on the crime problem, but we have to start. And people somebody asked me last night after the debate, do you really think this is fixable? Well, yeah, why'd you get out of bed this morning? You know, absolutely, I believe it's fixable. But we need people who go to work every day, who's not looking to be served, is going there to serve. Look, one of the cultures, I talk a lot about, we have to change the culture. We have to change the culture of cronyism in this state. We have to change the culture of this corruption attitude in this state. But we also have to change the political culture, meaning guys like me are coming to work every day, not for the politics of it. I love being a CEO. I love tackling problems, and my staff knows it. and they call me all the time. What you think about this? And I love that. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy these political debates and this, that, and the other. I get all fired up because this is serious.
Yeah.
This is serious business. Absolutely, because with the guys, the people who are doing well are typically, it's happening on the backs of those that are not when it comes to politics. And I'm going to end that.
Yeah. Well, John, I certainly appreciate you being here. Why don't you tell us how we get in touch with your campaign, and then make your pitch for our audience to vote for you?
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, I'm very easy to get. My wife always jokes about my cell phone. It's everywhere. I've had the same phone forever. I say forever. I took my dad's cell phone number. He died right before Katrina, and I took his cell phone number because we have the same name.
Yeah.
But we was with John Schroder. He's a John Henry. I'm a John Michael. And on his cell phone, his message was, "This is John Schroder. Please leave a message." So when he passed, I took his phone number, but when Katrina came, it knocked out the technology, and I lost it. So I've had this cell phone number for 20 years. It's 985-373-4873. My wife hates when I do that, but just call me.
Yeah.
Text me. Try not to leave me a voicemail because it's crazy right now. But look, I'm happy to have a discussion. I don't have all the answers, David. But I tell people, if you want a CEO who's going to work with the Democrats and the Republicans, I've taken at least 5 or 6 oaths of office in my adulthood. Never once did I raise my right hand and say, I'm only going to represent the Democrats, or I'm just going to represent the Republicans, or my grandparents are from Mexico, that I'm just going to represent the Hispanic community. No, my oath of office is that I swear to uphold the laws of this state and this country and represent all people. So I'm not in this for a fight. And if you want somebody who zigs and zags and is in all the politics, I'm not your guy. If you want somebody who's going to get in a foxhole and fight for the average person every day, then I am your guy. If you want a CEO who's going to go to work 5 Mondays a week, I'm your guy. If you want somebody who's going to help to understand that this community and this state moves on the backs of the 85th percentile, I'm your guy. If you want somebody who's going to make decisions when the doors are closed and where most decisions are made, in conference room when the doors are closed, every decision I make will be for the best interests of Louisiana. I'm your guy. I'm not a political to play politician. I am a politician, and I hope to change what people believe and see in politicians. I'm going to end the pay to play. I will not punish legislators when they don't agree with me, and I will not punish anybody. I'm going to sell you based on fact and data and what's the best way to move this state forward. I hope to do that and get elected, and I can start tomorrow. I don't need any training. I don't need any on-the-job training. And all you got to do is look at the Department of Treasury. And if you like the way that department's been run, that's how the state of Louisiana will run, because I can guarantee this. We're gonna perform better. The operation is gonna perform better. It'll take longer to fix the crime, education, and all that. Those are generational problems. But from a government standpoint and from an operational standpoint, we will function better for the citizens of this state.
I agree. You've always lived that way in everything that you've done, and you were a great legislator. You've been a great treasurer, and I wish you luck. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yes, sir.
And I know my clients and our listeners and our followers are going to be interested in your campaign, and we'll put up more information as we go.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
The Pelican Brief is an off-script production.